And as that process grew and poetry began to grow in me, and reading the books of Richard Wright, James Baldwin, and then Nikki Giovanni appeared on the scene. I think I was 13 years old, and she had that poem, Ego Tripping, that was on the airways. And that was one of the first poets that I had heard actually doing spoken word. And it was really powerful for me because at that point, I was born in the Congo. That's how she started. And it was just wonderful, you know, hearing poetry on the radio. And that really gave me or empowered me to want to write and to speak. And I would run around, would you like to hear my poem? And anyone that would listen, I would read poems. And then I began to share it in the church and the Sunday school and high school. And it just continued to develop. Today, I am actually the first African-American registered poetry therapist in the world.
You go, girl.
Honey, the queen.
You
From
go,
Queens.
girl. That is great.
From Queens, that's right. But it's actually been a wonderful journey. I did not expect to step into the role of being the first in my field. But poetry therapy, you can learn more about it, poetrytherapy.org. It's a National Association for Poetry Therapists. I'm licensed by the state of New York. So poetry has gone from just the creative writer in me as an actual modality for healing. I work with people who have schizophrenia, bipolar, the elderly, substance abuse, teenagers, domestic violence. It's a wonderful, I'll say a wonderful offering for healing for those who are interested in trying something different rather than just talk therapy, and it's very effective.
For those of you joining us, I'm Hung-Yee Lee Krakauer, and we're talking to three wonderful Queens writers. If you would like to know more about what each of our writers are doing, please check their websites, which will be listed at the bottom of the screen later on in the show. So you can find out a little bit more about all the wonderful things that go on in the literary arts in Queens. I'm an author too, and yes, and I have a very similar experience to all of you. Displacement, growing up in a Jewish neighborhood, mistaking Yiddish for English, getting into trouble, all kinds of things, and that sense of the world, that it's my sister and myself, and making up this funny language all by ourselves and creating a world. And that was our sheltering world. And my book was published in '94 about the Chinese Harvest Moon Festival, which is kind of like the Thanksgiving, but really it's more about how you choose what to take from your family values and recreate it, because we are all creatures of reinvention. And this is what the Harvest Moon Festival looked like in my house in Queens in the early '60s. Wow. And I brought also to share with you the original, well, this is my second one, which is a dummy. And I bring this because I like to show people the visible evidence of my thought process. And this, half of this was done on the subway. Some of it was done in the Plaza Hotel. Some of it was, so I am really a creature of sight and identity. And that's the next question I wanted to ask you. How does Queens, in the works that you've spoken about, is that a sense of setting, sight, identity, or does it inform your story? How does that play into your creative process? Nina?
Well, for me, there's no question that this physical location in Queens, this house, the neighborhood, the copper beech tree that we played under, was this enchanted setting for me in a way. And I guess it's, I have this friend from New Jersey who, when he heard that I had set a book about magic, you know, Magic by the Book in Queens, said, you know, there's nothing magical about Queens. You know, the idea that Queens, he thought of Queens as, you know, the off-ramp and auto parts stores. And in fact, Queens has, I think, a very magical history. I looked into the fact that probably that copper beech tree, which I discovered is still there in Whitestone, still growing and enormous, I think started, was probably a sapling when Queens was founded before the Revolutionary War. And
wow.
it's only in about 1909 that Queens came within commuting distance of Manhattan. And I love the F. Scott Fitzgerald line about,
Valley of Ashes.
well, I was going to say you have the Valley of Ashes, but the other part at the end is about the green breast of the New World, this vision that the Dutch sailors had. And I feel as though Queens has that because of the all the different ethnic groups, because of the people who've come from all over the world. It still has that sense of possibility, this sense of a place where you could have a tree growing from
A sapling.
you know,
right?
from a sapling that is now over 125 years old, and then I played under and I found is still there. And at the same time, a place where, when I read this book at the Whitestone Public Library, the faces that I saw were, you know, from all over the world. That was the sense that I had, and that is an inspiration to any writer.
And for you, Alvin, how does Queens figure?
Oh well, being that it's the last supper of Flushing, and that is like the two main characters are Flushing and me, but that's also but also looks at how being from Queens changed the whole arts world identity thing. And it's funny you mentioned that though too. Like when I was growing up, like we just loved British rock. We all wish we were British. So it's funny. If you lived in our neighborhood,
Right.
you would have been in. You know, we could pronounce the names of the Who, like Entwistle, Townsend, easier than we could pronounce than Chin, Wang and Wu, our cousins and everything. So it was reversed. You would have been the you'd have been the queen on our block.
I think I'm a
Yes.
little older than you are.
Oh, okay. Well, the Who say I look pretty young, but I'm just backdated. They say, so it was all, I don't know if you guys experienced, but Queens is so much more accepted now, and I think I like to think that one of the good things about real estate being so ridiculous in New York is that now the arts are spread out throughout the 5 boroughs. Where when we were growing up, the art scene was just so Manhattan-centric. I mean, I think some of us would even pretend not to be from Queens and everything too, but then it's really changed now too. So it looks like all that too. I feel like by the time I got my Manhattan identity together, it was cool to be from Queens. So it all backfired on me or something. So
Timing is everything, Alvin.
No, it really does look at that, and just how the scepter of what is. I guess the battle everyone always fights as you grow up. What is accepted and what's acceptable to you, and how you.
And how important is that acceptance to you?
Oh, it's very important because I guess you take the
I
time
meant that
to send something
rhetorically,
out.
just
Sure.
as a question.
No, I guess because obviously we spend the time to get these messages out, to write these, to prepare these works, and you want people to hear them. You want people to find that, and obviously it means, and also I guess acceptance, it means something different to you at different ages too. And I think it's more. We want acceptance for our work more than for ourselves necessarily. It's a different thing now. So it's looking about that, how the whole identity. Of course, you can't take Flushing out of New York City, though. Though I think your friend from New Jersey would like to. So maybe try that.
He should talk. I mean,
exactly, from New Jersey, and then make fun of Queens. My God, look at that.
Exactly. I gave him a hard time.
That's good.
Yes. So
How
just
dare they?
Right.
Okay.
how the role of Queens has changed, how the perception
Absolutely.
of the city, and just Queens' place in the arts has really changed. It looks at that whole thing
Do you
too.
anticipate that's going to change the tone of what you're going to create in the future? Is that going to have a significant impact on your?
Oh yes, because I think you look at how that's changing and how we keep reflecting on these things as we get older. Some people say that obviously we write about many things, but a lot of times what happened during our formative years and we're all in Queens, that really stays a strong source for us.
How about you, Barbara?
Well, Queens, definitely, and I wanted to just say that this, my CD, which is now available on CD Baby and Dig
Not CD
Station
Queen?
and Queens, and a bookstore in Queens called Seaburn's Bookstore, and this cover was actually taken in a Queens Park, so that it does play a role in terms of I love Queens.
Do
I
you?
have moved into other boroughs, no harm done. I love Brooklyn. Marty Markowitz is one of my favorites, but Helen is my best choice, Helen Marshall. But in terms of Queens and life and writing and how it's impacted my world, that Queens was a residential area. There was homes, there's family. There's a lot of diversity in Queens. And the diversity is throughout parks, the multicultural experiences that we have, so many different cultural experiences here, food, families, experiences that you would not get anywhere else.